1994, so we're 131 years old and looking good. We were founded at a time when women did not have the right to vote, and for whom most avenues of education, career, opportunity were tightly shut. And yet, a small group of very bold women, some might say nasty, came together in 1894 here in Los Angeles and created spaces for themselves and for the community, spaces where arts, education, and civic engagement could thrive. And they banded together to use art and culture to assert a more accurate and empowered public and civic role for themselves. In fact, one of those spaces, this campus was built in 1927. It was our 7th home. And I'm really proud of the fact that our Wilshire Eval Theater is the oldest theater in the nation, built by women and still operated by women. From our earliest days to tonight's program, the Eval has used arts and culture as hammers with which to shape society, tools for equity, expression, and lasting impact. So it's really an honor tonight to continue that tradition in partnership with the remarkable Geena Davis Institute on Gender and Media. Yes! An organization that has led the way in transforming how stories are told and who gets to be seen. Tonight you'll hear highlights from their latest research, their incredible research created in collaboration with the IW Group and with CAPE, examining how Asian and Pacific Islander characters have been represented in major films from 2010 to 2024. This new study, of course, builds on previous research, the landmark report, I Am Not a Fetish, or Model Minority. Now, it is my incredible, great honor to welcome someone whose leadership has brought this critical research to life and helped drive change across the entertainment industry. Please join me in welcoming the President and CEO of the Geena Davis Institute, the remarkable Madeline Nonno.
Hi everyone, I'm going to introduce our fabulous ASL interpreters, Lucy Roberts and Amy Rodriguez. And then I want to do a formal land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered here today is the home and traditional lands belonging to the Tongva Nation. Tonight, we come with respect and gratitude for the Tongva people who still remain caretakers of this land. Thank you. So, given our topic, I wanted to open with a statement from Lisa Liu, trailblazing award-winning actor. You know her from Joy Luck Club, Crazy Rich Asians, and at the age of 98, she just received her start on the Walk of Fame. Now, originally, she was offered her own star back in the 60s, but she didn't want people trampling on her face. Anyway, she said, at 98, I now embrace the star as a testament to my resilience and perseverance. I am honored to stand in support of the next generation of rising Asian actors whose path I hope will shine even brighter. And I think that's a great way for us to start. And to kick us off, I'm going to welcome our fearless leader, founder and chair, Geena Davis.
Hi, everybody. I'm so thrilled to see all of you. Oh, it's thrilling to have all of you here. Thank you so much. It's great to be back at the Ebell. I love this place, and I loved hearing that history about it, which is just phenomenal. Today, we are very proud to unveil Rewriting the Script, a new era for API voices in Hollywood, which is our latest report examining Asian and Pacific Islander representation in mainstream film. And this work, as you heard, builds on our 2021 study, I Am Not a Fetish or Model Minority, and it reflects our commitment to continuing to measure and challenge and transform how API characters are portrayed in entertainment. And I want to thank Bill Imada of IWG Group for his generosity in funding this study, and Michelle Sugihara and Cape for returning as our partners, and Jonathan Sposata of Joy Sauce for sponsoring this event. So our updated report includes a comprehensive content analysis of the top 150 films over the past 15 years, and a new industry survey captures the lived experiences of API professionals working in film and television, which you will hear more about, of course, shortly. Encouragingly, API industry professionals report feeling more valued in the workplace, and microaggressions, though still prevalent, are definitely declining. So these are important signals of a cultural shift. And as you know from all of our research, it's not only who is showing up, but how are they being portrayed. Given how profoundly film and TV influence culture and our societal views, it is very important that we stay the course and push for more API characters and more authentic representations. So thank you all for being a part of this conversation and this movement. So we are going to get started. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our next speaker, our friend and partner, Michelle Sugihara.
This is amazing. Look at this. This is why I love the Abel. Amazing service. Thank you. Thank you, Gina. Well, good evening. I'm Michelle Sugihara, the Executive Director, and I lead CAPE, the world's longest running nonprofit championing Asian and Pacific Islander people, culture, and stories. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. CAPE is thrilled to collaborate with the Geena Davis Institute once again, and we are even prouder to be launching this report during Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Just a few more days left, and we made it. But research is an important component of CAPE's strategy to advance representation from script to screen, which also includes our talent development programs, helmed by Rianne Moore, who is here tonight, our script consultations and trainings, helmed by Jess Wu, who's also here tonight, as well as the CAPE database and the promotion of completed projects. We also have Kenny Ng, our program manager, here tonight as well, supporting. And I also want to add to the chorus thanking CAPE board member Bill Imada and IW Group, who is here in the audience as well as our CAPE board chair, Sanjay Sharma, and our CAPE board member, Albert Cheng, who will be speaking tonight, as well as a lot of CAPE family members in the audience. It is said that what gets measured gets improved. So we hope that this latest report helps to continue moving the needle toward more nuanced and impactful storytelling from and about our communities. So it is my pleasure to turn the mic over to Dr. Meredith Conroy, VP of Research and Insights at Geena Davis Institute, who will present highlights from our study. Enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thanks so much. Okay. It's on. Make sure this is working.
There we go. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for the introduction, Michelle, and to everyone's remarks. As they mentioned, I'm going to be sharing some of the key findings from our report, which I'm not going to be able to cover it all. So we encourage you to visit our website, geenadavisinstitute.org, to read the whole report. Or on your chairs, you'll see you have a handout, and there's a QR code on the back of that. If you want to look at the report at any time, it's there. Okay. So we know from existing research and also analysis of Hollywood's past that when Pacific Islanders and Asians are on screen, they're often portrayed in ways that are very stereotypical, if at all. That said, there's a lot to celebrate in the last few years. The box office success of Moana 2, critical acclaim of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Beef. I think these data points remind us that stories that feature prominently Asian and Pacific Islander characters are for everyone. But they are also very meaningful to groups of people in the U.S. in particular who have been marginalized or who have faced racial discrimination and prejudice. And for that reason, that's what we do with the Institute. I'll get to this quote in a minute. But at the Institute, as has already been said, our goal is to use data and insights to move the needle on inclusive storytelling. We know the importance of inclusive storytelling, and I think I picked this quote because it's a clear example of Michelle Yeoh knowing the importance of inclusive storytelling when she accepted her Oscar in 2023, the first Asian to win the Best Actress Award. She said this: "For all the little girls and boys who look at me, who look like me, watching tonight, this is a beacon of hope and possibilities. This is proof. Dream big, and dreams do come true." Audiences revel in being seen on screen. This particular figure is of API audiences, and it shows willingness to spend time and money on content that is authentic Asian portrayals in film and television. And noticeably, younger audiences are the most invested in this, and that is the future of film and television. But we know from other studies, like this one from McKinsey, but also organizations like Nielsen and the Center for Scholars and Storytellers, that younger audiences are watching for this, and younger audiences are more racially diverse than older audiences. They understand what it means to be portrayed authentically, and that's another reason to keep moving the needle forward. So, crucially, we need inclusive storytelling. It's not only good business, it's important. And that's why we do what we do at the Institute. So tonight, I'm going to answer 3 questions. All of these findings are found in the report and more. But the first question I'm going to address is, what is the current state of APA representation in popular film? That's our film database that was already mentioned. And the second question, we're going to use our database of analysis of API professionals in the industry that we surveyed in 2025 and 2021. And with that, we're going to be able to understand the challenges and opportunities that API professionals face in the industry. And then I'll conclude with some potential solutions. But I know that our panel tonight is going to get into that more. So, to answer these questions, we have a database of over 5,000 characters from the last 15 years of popular film, 150 films in total. So we look at the top 10 films based on U.S. domestic box office each year. And then our survey database I just mentioned is an analysis of API professionals. Thank you to Kate for recruiting these respondents in both 2025 and 2021. All right, let's start. So the current state of API representation on screen. In the top films, 7% of characters on screen are Asian or Pacific Islander. There we go. This is increasing over time. In fact, our report that's already been mentioned looked at 10 years of film from 2010 to 2019. That number was much smaller. The last 5 years have been instrumental in explaining this increase in Asian and Pacific Islander representation on screen. And this change is positive and statistically significant, and so this is a positive sign of change in the industry. This is a slightly different angle. Right now, I'm presenting this at the film level. So the y-axis is the number of films, and the x-axis is the year. And we also see that overall, individual films are including more Asian representation. So it's not just increasingly more characters. Individual films are more racially diverse in terms of Asian and Pacific Islander representation. Now, that flat blue line, that's not the x-axis. That's leads. As I mentioned, the y-axis is just 10 films per year. So that number can't get very high because a lead is one. Sometimes, there's ensemble casts and co-leads, but that flat line is showing us, and I'll get to that in a minute, that API leads are still uncommon in films. So on that note, yes, 87% of leads in the films of the last 15 years that we analyzed are white. 5% are Asian or Pacific Islander, and then 8% are other people of color. Among API leads, most are men. 75% are men, so this sample size is very small, but of the API leads on screen, 75% are men, just 25% are women. And 50% are Pacific Islander, 38% are East Asian, 13% are South Asian, and there were not any Southeast Asian leads in any of these films over the last 15 years. I know I don't have to tell this room, but those large numbers for Pacific Islander have a lot to do with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Jason Momoa. Yeah, they showed up in the database a lot. So, yeah. But in the report, we also look at the ethnicity of all characters, and it's more balanced than this. The sample size is small, but it's illustrative of what it looks like to be for Asian and Pacific Islander leads. This is what it looks like. But yes, check out our report to see the ethnic diversity of Asian and Pacific Islanders at the supporting level and the minor character level as well. Okay, so I'm going to stick on there real quickly and sort of wrap up that, is that altogether our analysis tells us that Asian and Pacific Islander representation in popular films is increasing, but gender and ethnic diversity is still lacking. That's kind of our big takeaway on the analysis. Okay, let's talk now about the challenges and opportunities that APIs in the industry are experiencing. So Geena already alluded to this in her remarks, but I think it's worth mentioning again. If you look, we asked respondents whether or not they feel like their voice is heard at work. In 2021, only 44% said yes. In 2025, that jumped to 62%. That's a really big increase. That tells us that that people are having better experience at work and feeling like their voice is valued. Now, there are other increasing or changes that are positive, but there still suggest issues in the industry. For example, when we look at microaggressions, experiences of racism, feelings of being tokenized, and the experience of being the only API person in the room, there has been a decline in all of those from 2025 compared to 2021, but there's still the majority of APIs in the industry are experiencing those. So progress, but a lot of room, a lot of ground to make up. We also asked respondents, what is your impression of the industry-wide effort to improve API representation behind the scenes and on screen? We gave them the option of better, worse, stayed the same, or both better and worse. When we were writing this survey with our partners at CAPE, we appreciated their insights into this. The last 5 years have been ups and downs, and so we thought we'd give the opportunity for people to express, to indicate if that's what they're feeling. And the majority of respondents say that yes, things behind the scenes and on screen have gotten both better and worse. But what this chart is also telling us is that there's more optimism for API folks in the industry about on-screen representation than there is for behind-the-scenes representation. And many of you work in the industry, and I'm sure that this, jives squares with your experiences. We also asked respondents to tell us what are the most tired tropes and stereotypes, identity-based stereotypes that you're seeing. So we pulled out the ones that were most commonly mentioned. So I'll talk about some of those. So respondents said the most tired trope for East Asians on screen is the tiger mom trope, the model minority myth, and characters who have broken English. These were mentioned by many of the respondents. For Southeast Asians characters, one of the most common things mentioned was feeling discouraged about occupational tropes, such as the manicurist, or someone who's a domestic worker or a sex worker. For South Asians, occupational tropes were also commonly mentioned, in particular here, an IT worker or a taxi driver. It was also mentioned that South Asian characters often have thick accents, and this is a tired trope that people are, tired of seeing. For Pacific Islanders, what was most frequently mentioned had to do with how culture shows up. So, an over-reliance on surfing or hula dancing or luau's when Pacific Islander representation is central to the story. I think key to these critiques is acknowledging that it's not necessarily that, some of these experiences aren't real. But with stereotypes, if we're only seeing one story told over and over and over again about a community, it's incomplete. They might not be wrong, but it's incomplete. And when you're getting an incomplete story about a community, it is wrong. So that's one of the, I think by calling some of these things out, there may be some of our favorite characters who exhibit or maybe embody some of these tropes. But we want to see more. We want to see more portrayals. Oops. And on that note, let's talk about some stuff that people love. This was, I think, some of the most fun of responses to go through. We asked respondents to tell us some of the characters or shows that inspire them. People mentioned things past and present. We picked for this slide some of the characters from more recent productions. So as we've got represented here, Deli Boys was mentioned many times. Yeah. Pen 15. Yeah. Never Have I Ever. Let's see, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Past Lives. Beef. Interior Chinatown. And Rescue High Surf, which has a lot of Pacific Islander representation. So we picked shows that were mentioned by multiple respondents, but it was also fun to see some that are characters that maybe I had never heard of or had forgotten about, and to hear people say how important those characters were to them. So I pulled out a couple quotes from characters that I think most of the people in the room will be familiar with to share this, because our motto at the Geena Davis Institute is, if they can see it, they can be it. And reading through some of these respondents, it just affirmed that motto is so accurate and important. So here I'm going to read a few. So, I remember when Mulan came out, and seeing someone that had my same hair was a big deal. You want to see yourself on screen when you're a child, and growing up at a time when Disney princesses looked a little like me was something I noticed, and it positively impacted me. Next, Devi from Never Have I Ever was one of the first times I saw different dimensions of South Asian characters on screen. I'd never seen an angry young Indian girl on television before, and I love that she was loud. Raj from Deli Boys is meaningful to me because he embodies Asian American people I know in real life. I've seen the show. I don't know where this person's hanging out, but he is so relatable because he's a messy millennial. I can relate to that, but still showcases specific nuances to being Asian American. Okay, so we have other quotes in the report. We encourage you to go check those out, and you can read other inspiration that people had, especially characters from their youth. All right, so to wrap things up, in the report we can include some recommendations that are directly derived from the data in the report. I'm just going to focus on a couple here, and like I mentioned, I'm sure the panel is going to elaborate on a lot of solutions and things that we want to see change. All right, so first, we want to invest in Southeast Asian stories and talent. As you saw from the data, we didn't see any Southeast Asian leads, and if you also look at the analysis of characters in notable supporting, and minor roles, Southeast Asian talent was the least, showed up the least. And in the survey analysis, when asked about whether or not representation was positive, respondents were the least likely to say that Southeast representation was positive. So there's lots of indicators that people recognize that Southeast representation is low and negative, more negative. So prioritize funding, greenlighting, and marketing projects led by Southeast Asian creators, since their representation is viewed as the least visible and least positive. Number 2, build career pathways behind the scenes. Mentorship, trainings, promotions, these things are important to increasing Asian Pacific Islanders in the industry. Focus particularly on people who don't have access to these. There's Obviously, we want to make sure that people can get into these pipelines, but there are people who don't have exposure or don't know somebody. So focusing on people who have fewer connections. Center nuanced API characters across genres. We talk about this in the report too. Genres is where we do see some disparities that we would like to see changed. So in this case, support projects that feature API characters in a wide range of stories, beyond trauma or identity narratives or monolithic portrayals, to match the breadth of audience inspiration seen within titles like Deli Boys and Beef. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. We hope that you'll, thanks. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you so much. And I now have the privilege of introducing our next speaker. Okay, so I'm going to welcome Jonathan Sposato. He is the first, where are you? There you are, okay. Jonathan is the first person to ever sell 2 successful tech companies to Google and a third to Shutterstock, a rare feat that makes him a serial entrepreneur. Please welcome our friend, CEO and founder of GeekWire and now Joy Sauce TV, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Really, yes, another round of applause. So, hello, I'm Jonathan, and as a serial entrepreneur, I dream the impossible every single darn day. And every single time I start a company, I'm always told, no, you can't do it. You're going to fail. Or worse yet, somebody's tried that and it didn't work. But I don't believe that, because I stand here before you as the son of a single mother who struggled. We didn't have 2 dimes to rub together in a bad part of Brooklyn when there was a bad part of Brooklyn. I'm half Chinese, half Korean, but with an Italian-American last name. That alone makes me a bit of an impossibility. So all downhill from here. I started Joy Sauce as the first all-American Asian. I switched the words because I believe the American part is the descriptor and the Asian part is the core. But we started the first all-American Asian media platform precisely because of the lack of representation. And while we saw, as we see in the report and as we see in real life, that things are getting better all the time, I don't think it's getting better fast enough. I think there's way more work to do. Am I right? Okay. So, and I wanted to seize that agency for ourselves. It's not a done deal, and there's a hard, hard road ahead. And forgive my earnestness here, but that's precisely why we need powerful allyship. We need to support ourselves better, frankly, within the Asian American community. And we also need powerful allyship from outside of the Asian American community. I remember my Italian American father championing me in school, my white cousins coming to my defense when I got bullied, and vice versa. I did the same for them. And again, and my wife is non-Asian, my son is mixed. So again, forgive my earnestness, but that's why I support the Geena Davis Institute and the great, great work being done, getting at all of this wonderful data on Asian representation, and that's the power of allyship. And again, as you saw, there's still a lot of work to do. I was just giving a talk at Microsoft to all of the Asian American employees at Microsoft, and the #1 challenge that in the real world, forget about TV, what's on the screen, in the real world, the #1 challenge that a lot of Asian Americans face in industry is that they're not getting promoted. They're the least promoted group, precisely because when you do look on screen, we're not recognized as the protagonists, as the leads, male or female. So our work is not done. But if we all succeed, actually, excuse me, not if, but when we all succeed, and not just Joy Sauce, but CAPE and TAF and Goldhouse and the Geena Davis Institute, when we all succeed, we will all stand with greater stature, walk with more swagger, and dance with more joy. So, please enjoy this stellar, amazing panel of rock stars that's about to grace the stage. Madeline, I hand it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. So he's going to work on removing the podium, and I am going to welcome our illustrious panelists.
So please join me, Porna Jagannathan, award-winning actor, Deli Boys and Never Have I Ever. Albert Chang, Emmy Award-winning VP, Head of Prime Video US. Grant Toy, VP Film Development and Production, Stampede Ventures. And last but not least, Maggie Kang, Director, Sony Animation. So I'm essentially going to have like 2 buckets of big questions to ask everyone. The first round is going to be about pathways and pivots, and then the second round is going to be about insights and opportunities. So Porna, I'm going to start with you. You mentioned that you hated being an outsider, and my question for you is, how did growing up in Tunisia, Pakistan, India, and the US influence your career? And by the way, she was an advertising executive up until 2016 before you kicked the curb and pursued your acting. So tell us about that.
Research thing, that's what I used to do. Yeah, isn't it incredible? So I really appreciate it. So thank you for the IWG group for funding that and bringing us that. What was your question?
So tell us about growing up around the world.
Yes.
And how that inspired you. And then also
Absolutely.
the pivot
Right.
from advertising to acting.
Right. I'll start with a pivot, which is I always believe there's something called a life force. So when I was in advertising, it was a 9 to 5, it's advertising, it's 9 to whatever. I'd spent so many hours there, but over the weekend I would take acting classes. And acting class would start at 9 a.m. and end at 8 p.m. and the time would go like this. And in advertising, like every second off that clock, it would just not, like it was like the clock was stationary. And so I really understood the difference of life force. When I was in advertising, even though I had the best boss, best clients, best everything, best pay, there was a life force missing for me that was present in acting class. And so I just took my mom is here. I never told my mom what I was doing.
Mama, Auntie,
Yeah.
so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. The trick to making it as a South Asian is not to tell your parents what you're doing. So I didn't tell my parents, until someone told them what I was up to, Anyway, so that was a pivot. It was very scary. I was very broke, but it was really it was really a question of life force. The other thing, which I totally forgot.
You said you
I know,
hated being
I
an
remember.
outsider.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is, because I grew up I was born in Tunisia and Ireland, Pakistan, Brazil, Argentina, just all over my entire life. My mother was married. My father is a diplomat, and so because I would not only change homes every 3 years, we would actually physically change homes every year and a half, actually. So throughout my life, I always was searching for a notion of home. I never felt at home anywhere. And you can ask my mom, she never allowed us to decorate any place. Like, we weren't allowed to put a nail on the wall. So there's a picture of my dad with the Pope, with a picture of Krishna, with a picture of like us as kids, all stuck on nails that were left there from the previous owner. So even in my work, I always tried to look for scripts that somehow felt like home. And I never really found it until I walked on the set of Arami, or I walked on the set of A Never Have I Ever, or walked on the set of Deli Boys. There's a feeling of comfort and of belonging that exists on diverse sets, which doesn't quite exist everywhere else. It is, but it is really that. And when you find it, you know it, right? You walk on set. I always talk about the notion. I've had a glass of wine, by the way. I always talk about the notion of continuous self, which is on other sets, I leave myself behind and I walk on set. On a set like Never Have I Ever or Deli Boys, I am the same person at home that I am on set. I bring my whole self to a set, and that is that just lets me be a fully realized character versus a cardboard cutout of a character.
And aren't we so happy that she is? So Albert, how did watching Roots and dissecting a frog lead you to your illustrious career in tech and entertainment?
Okay. Oh, wow. You really dug deep there.
I dig deep.
The frog thing was pretty much a clear evidence that I was not going to be a doctor. Much to the disappointment to my parents, and I got an F for frog dissection. But then Roots, though, very early, I was a kid watching Roots when it aired on ABC.
Yeah, ABC.
And it really moved me in terms of just seeing how the power of television can bring these stories, and actually it formed a really early, in my early childhood, just formed like a very different view. I was able to see the world through a very different community. And I grew up in Hawaii, which can be very sort of isolating. It's got its own subculture. And my only portal to the mainland was through my TV set. And so the television has been such a powerful influence on me, everything from how I viewed the world, why I like chips and Happy Days, but it's how I actually looked at the power of the medium, and it really informed what life was like off the island. And I didn't go off the island until college, and somehow I felt I was sort of prepared, but not really, because TV is not exactly like real life, but it was a very powerful thing. And I think that powerful medium became something that I really was attracted and drawn to, and felt that in any way that I could figure out how to participate and contribute to it would be really an awesome thing to do. And interestingly, like both my mom and my wife both learned how to speak English by watching television. Mm-hmm. So they came to the U.S., they immigrated, they didn't know how to speak English, and I don't know, maybe through gallons of ice cream while my mom was pregnant, basically learned television by watching soap operas. And my wife immigrated. My in-laws actually still to this day don't speak English. My wife literally grew up watching TV and taught herself repeating words and making associations from TV, and taught herself how to speak English, which is crazy. I don't even know how I could have done that. So that to me was how television became such a powerful medium, just in terms of the influence that it had on my life, my family's life.
So I have a follow-up for you, because you also mentioned Confucianism and bamboo ceilings as being something that is a challenge and that you've also had to overcome as you've had this stellar career. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and this is something I talk a lot about. I mean, Grant probably knows about it because he's gone through this therapy session. It's when you grow up in a household that is strongly influenced by Confucianism, the values within that Eastern Asian culture often define how you interact and how you look at hierarchies within society. And what that does is that it often, and I didn't know this until a woman named Jane Hyun, who wrote the book Breaking the Bamboo Ceiling, came to me and said, "You need to read my book, because I think it helped you break out of the mental model that you have in how you should lead or be a leader in American or Western culture." And in Confucianism, the things that are valued is group harmony. You work really hard, but you don't stick your neck out. Individualism is not valued. You should not do that. And so when you're in a corporate environment, you find yourself holding yourself back. Well, I'm going to wait until I'm allowed to speak. If I have a boss that I disagree with, I will not say anything that would be counter to what they're thinking. And I think in American culture, that's sort of antithetical to what it means to be a leader. You should advocate for yourself. You should state your position, even if it's maybe counter to what everyone else is thinking. You're encouraged to have a point of view, and in many ways, Confucianism doesn't always honor that or reward that. And so I think people who grew up in that environment in a household think that the way to actually achieve is to just work hard. I'll keep my head down, and someone will notice. And the reality is that people won't. And I think in many cases that stereotype has often been infused in Asian representation, which is we're the model minority. We don't create a lot of waves. We're not super loud in pushing back on things that are or injustices even. Things happen to Asian American communities that are clearly horrible, but the community is very quiet about it. And the one thing I will say that's interesting about the data that we have, that I've seen in the last couple of years, is there is a marked difference in how this community is rallying together and coalescing around allyship and being louder. I don't know what it is. It's probably the younger generation. I'm too old to like in my generation, we were like, oh, someone else is going to deal with this. But I saw Asian Americans in the industry who said, we're going to gather together. Here's how we're, and I saw that in Gold House. Here's how we're going to connect all these different sectors of the industry, and we're going to be loud. We're going to support each other, which is very different, because I lived in a generation where like Asians kind of kept to themselves. We do our thing, achieve, let everyone else fend for themselves. And for the first time I saw in a room where Gold House started, there were 200 people in a conference room in CAA, and I looked at everyone going, oh my God, there's a lot of us here. And that was the first time we all said, you know what, we have to create our own Asian mafia. And the only way to do that is to make sure that we are supporting each other and giving back to each other and trying to find opportunities and lifting each other up, because I think that's the only way that we're able to do that. And I think part of that shows in the data. I've never felt so belonging as part of this group that's in the industry right now.
Thank you so much for that. So building on what Albert was saying about taking control of your destiny, Grant, walk us through medicine, mailrooms, and mentors, and your journey to your fabulous career that you have now.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here, and thanks to everyone for coming. But I grew up in Torrance, so kind of LA, but very suburban, to a big mixed-race family. I was the middle of 5 kids. My dad is Filipino and Chamorro, the native people from Guam, and my mom is white. He was a high school teacher. She was a nurse. So I'm the middle of 5 siblings. We came home after school every day and just turned on the TV. And we grew up on Brady Bunch, a lot of Brady Bunch, all of the Nickelodeon and Hannah Montana shows, and every dollar bin DVD that they could get. And so I was watching TV, and I often saw the white part of myself being championed in all of these stories, and I started identifying with that side of me even more. I love your organization's motto or slogan because it really rings true to my past. And so not having anyone in entertainment, I really had no in. And so I went to college and thought I wanted to go into medicine or politics or doing something more traditional that my family knew about. But I ended up doing an internship for a political campaign and an externship with a surgeon. And I hated both of those. And I ended up interning for the show Big Brother, and I loved it. I was like, I am going to go to reality TV. This is my future. I still love all reality TV. And I started doing PA jobs, and ultimately I got an amazing interview at CAA for their internship program with this amazing executive there at the time, Ruben Garcia, who I think kickstarted a lot of people of color's careers in the industry in my class level, and he believed in me and he saw something in me, and I was chosen to be an intern at CAA that summer, and ultimately kind of spiraled into the motion picture literary department because of my love for all those dollar bin films growing up. And from there, I was able to find mentors all along the way. My boss at CAA, Ruben at CAA, our CEO currently, Greg Silverman, who used to run Warner Brothers and now runs Stampede Ventures. People have lifted me up all along the way in a really amazing way, and I look to pay it forward, right? When I'm hiring assistants or when we're hiring PAs on our show or staffing up or casting. I mean, we did a film with Amazon, Space Cadet, where most of the supporting roles weren't written for specific types of actors, and we ended up having an amazing supporting cast filled with API talent. Kuhu Verma plays an amazing role. Troy Awada plays an amazing role. Poppy Liu, if anyone's watching Hacks, plays an amazing role, and that's because we had casting directors champion them, right? Just like I had my mentors along my career championing me. So just going back to your takeaways, I think we need more people being vocal about people they love and believe in and want to rise up.
Thank you for that. So building on mentorship and allyship, which has been a big theme, Maggie, I'd like to turn over to you. And you went from Korea to Canada, from a story artist to a director. And can you talk about your early influences and what helped you navigate?
Yeah, so I was born in Seoul, Korea, and so I grew up watching all these like kids programs that we would just find on our TV. So just I don't even remember. There's some weird like 80s Korean TV. If you Google it, I still remember all the songs and stuff. So I grew up watching a lot of cartoons. My dad was a cinephile and still is. He watches like 2 to 3 films a week, and he's been doing that for 35 years. And so I grew up watching amazing world cinema, like Kurosawa films I watched when I was like 7 years old. I don't think it was very appropriate, but and since, you know, I've had to like rewatch all the classics and stuff. And so like our like Christmases were like, I think one year the entire Chaplin collection came out on DVD. So like for 2 weeks, that's all we did. We just watched like Chaplin films. And so I had this like really great upbringing from a dad who just loved storytelling and film. So that really ingrained this, you know, love of filmmaking in me. And so I had a lot of these, and then growing up in my teens, I watched a lot of K-drama, I listened to K-pop, and I had to do that secretly because all my white friends would make fun of me. And so I was kind of just this kid who was, you know, like born in Korea, went to Canada when I was 5, and so I was like, you know, identity crisis of like, am I Korean? Am I really Korean? I don't really fit here. And so long story short, I got interested in art. My parents were very like supportive in their child going into the arts, which I've later learned in life that's not very common for Asian families. So I went to Sheridan College where I graduated with a classical animation degree. And I got recruited by DreamWorks in my graduating year. And so at the fresh age of 22, I moved down here, which really terrified my mom because she thought I was too young. And I've just been here ever since, just working on feature animation. And all of those influences kind of led me to pitching a story that I really just wanted to see, which was like Korean women and Korean people represented in the feature animation industry. And so that led me to pitch this idea of K-pop idols who are also demon hunters on the side. And so that movie took about 7 years to create, and it's releasing next month. So. I completely forgot your question, but I hope I answered it in some way.
But I do want to say, you know, when you talk about the parental imprint, didn't you tell me that your dad bought you your first like drawing book or art book? Or?
Yeah. So we watched a lot of these like weird foreign films, a lot of subtitle reading, but he also bought me my first animation books. So from there, I just studied. I learned about all these people. I realized that was actually a job. People got paid to draw cartoons and make movies, and so yeah, like he was just completely supportive. And actually, both of his daughters. I have an older sister. My dad is very odd. He loves film, and he actually like told me that he wrote the screenplay in college, which is long gone. And then he also wanted to be a history professor. And so my sister went the literary route, and she's like a PhD, you know, perfect kind of model Asian daughter. And then I'm the one who went into entertainment and pursued those dreams that he had of becoming a director.
And we're going to hear more about your story that's going to be coming out. So pointed back to you, you mentioned that previously you felt like a diversity hire early in your career. Do you feel differently now? And then can you tell the story about your character in Deli Boys? Because Geena and I read a story in Variety, in Vanity Fair, and we're like, what? Yeah. We were really surprised about that, so.
So Abdullah Saeed, the creator, went to the award ceremony, and you can say it better, but this 2019, Geena got a humanitarian award, is
Oscar,
that right?
her second Oscar.
Second Oscar. And in that, she talks about how the portrayal of women and girls, she talks about how few women there are in powerful positions in the world. And then when it comes to the portrayal of powerful women, it's even worse. So the fictionalized depiction is even worse than the factual, you know. So there was a brilliant call to action in her speech, which is, don't look at a world ahead which has more diversity diversity or more female-led characters. Look at your scripts right now, the ones you are working on right now. Go home tonight and repopulate your scripts with women. Take the first name of your character, and if it's a man, switch it to a woman. And that night, the creator, I have to tell you, this guy is unbelievable because he's stoned 24/7. Abdullah Saeed went back, hit that dab, and changed, and my character went from lucky uncle to lucky auntie. And he changed another character. He changed 2 characters in his script to women that night. And I have to say, it changes the DNA of the script. It isn't a substitute. It changes so much about the story. It adds, I mean, a character like mine is not a woman who is killing, 7 people at one time and cooking food for the boys on the other hand. It's that character is not available in media, and much less as a South Asian woman portraying such a powerful figure. So it changes the chemistry of a script and changes the dynamic. All our writers, our showrunners are all women in their 50s. I'm in my 50s, and so they're all lucky aunties. They're all, throughout their careers, have been grossly underestimated, and this character allows them to write their story. And yeah, it's fantastic.
So just a little follow-up. Did you know that story before you read for it? No. When you read it, did you say, oh, this is just so fresh and interesting?
I did not know that story until much later, but the first time I read the script and spoke to Abdullah and Jenny Connor and the group, I did say this character has a masculine energy I've never seen before. And it is true. And, even as I play the character, sometimes when I look at a character, I look for what's written in and what's not there. So what is written in, I don't have to portray. It's just written in. So that fierceness, that masculinity, that someone said in the audience, I love her problem-solving method, which is just killing people. Like, she just has a problem, she'll just get rid of them. So that is just in the script. So what I brought was this, I'm a South Asian mother, I have a child, my mom, everyone just infantilizes everyone. So I brought that quality to the character, which is she is overly nurturing. In the pilot, you'll see she shoots someone, and then she'll turn around and she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I got blood all over you. And she'll wipe their face and be like, I'm so sorry, So I brought that aspect because I didn't have to bring the other aspect to screen. I didn't have to bring that masculine energy to screen at all. It was written in. But yes, and your first question?
Well, just that you had said previously you felt like you were a diversity hire
100%.
early in your career.
100%.
But not anymore.
No, not anymore.
Bravo. We're making progress, people. We're making progress.
Yeah.
So
when you see diversity working in front of the camera, the chances are diversity is working behind the camera as well.
Absolutely.
So people want to see writers, showrunners, everyone wants to see themselves reflected on screen because you are somehow writing yourself into life. You're writing yourself into consciousness, into other people's consciousness. So that mission is so vital for the writer's room. It's so vital for the showrunners. It's vital for the directors. And it trickles down into what the actors get to say.
And actually, statistically, we had a report we affectionately called the Geena Benchmark Report, which looked at the largest grossing films from 2007 to 2017. And what we found at that time, and definitely something Meredith wants to update, is that female centric films generated 55% more at the box office. And also we found that when there were diverse co-leads, it generated the most. But when we looked behind the camera, we did a study looking at the 10 largest global film markets around the world. When there was the presence of a female director or writer, it was a 6.8 to a 7.5% increase in female roles on screen. So there is a direct correlation, because think about it. If you're a writer, you're a showrunner, you're writing either what you love or what you know. So if it's a 5-to-1 ratio of male writers and directors to female, well, of course, look at the output. So, but speaking of reinvention and future innovation, Albert, I'm going to go back to you because, everybody in the room wants to know about the great contraction of the industry from the pandemic to the strikes. And can you talk about challenges and opportunities? What's reinvention? What's future innovation for the industry? And your thoughts and your advice on those of us in the audience who are trying to get shows made or trying to get scripts read.
Okay, that's a
We're
really
gonna be here for a
all
while,
these hard
so-
questions.
But we do have dessert afterwards, so just want to let you know.
Yeah, thanks, Madeline. I think the industry is definitely hitting I would say a rough patch in terms of finding its way through this pretty massive digital transition. I mean, it's been happening for a while. It's been happening 10, 15 years already. But and a lot of it's just the whole shape of the industry is changing with tech companies. I meant one, Netflix, have basically driven the industry in a direction where the business model has completely changed. And then for a while, it was being rewarded in Wall Street, and these companies were spending tons of money. We had this major boom in content, probably more content that ever was made, and in many cases, it actually provided opportunities for diverse content, so I'm not going to knock that, because there just wasn't enough suppliers, right? So you're going to feed this huge streaming growth and put a lot of money into it. Now, the winners of this game are Netflix. Obviously, they were first. They built a huge amount of scale, and they were profitable. But then everyone else chased, and that means every studio chased it. Same strategy. No one ever thought about maybe everyone should figure out where they're best at. And so you had a lot of money spent, and then all of a sudden Wall Street decided that was not the right idea. And what you're seeing is the traditional studios pulling back because they are losing money, hand over fist, because they want to compete like a tech company, but they don't have the tech resources. And you have tech companies that have a lot of cash, Amazon through other parts of their business that can afford to fund losses for a very long time. And we have, I went to Amazon because I'm like, wow, this world is changing. I am shielded by a massive tech giant, and I can lose a lot of money for a while before anyone finds out. And I think that's how a lot of this is happening. But I think because the industry is now contracting, because the demands of Wall Street on profitability has shifted the entire landscape, and it's made a lot of people very scared. And traditional studios are now being very careful. They have budgets. They have to hit their financial targets, and a lot of them also have a lot of debt. And so with the amount of money they do have, they're a lot less, they're not risk-taking anymore. And so you hear a lot about that. Studios just don't make bets. They're all betting on franchises, things that they know will actually work. And that has a pretty profound ripple effect on our industry, on the ability to innovate and create new stories. And oftentimes, my biggest fears when it comes to diverse stories, if I had to choose a story about an Asian American family that's, growing up in Iowa versus, the 15th superhero movie, they're going to pick the 15th superhero movie. And I think, and because the budgets are smaller, they're going to make more of those bets. And there's going to be less of this bets on these, innovative new stories. And I think that's the thing that I think is really dangerous in terms of the health of our overall business and creativity. That being said, that's sort of the bleak part of the world. The opportunity in sort of the chaos, I do think, and maybe it's just my fundamental optimism, is that the emergence of independent creators, content producers is going to emerge out of this chaos. Because the world is much more different than it has been in the past of finding an audience. And if creators can figure out how to tell stories and produce a film or television series in a way, in an economical way, and there's a lot of technology that can help that. Technology can be a friend, not a substitute. That you can create stories that can actually find an audience and actually make money. And there's no one stopping someone from doing that. And the reason why YouTube is so successful and it is taking off like crazy, like even, when I look at the numbers of what YouTube is doing, it is hard to catch up, because the reason why it's also very successful is because it's diverse. Creators have figured out, Asian creators have figured out how to create their own stories, gone on YouTube, found an audience, made money, and audiences are flocking to them because they are seeing, again, themselves reflected in this content. So I do think that the digital environment, if someone can figure out how to marshal, to find audiences, and then someone can come in and figure out, like, how do I get the financing to make content that I know can make a return on investment, you don't really need a studio, really. I mean, a studio is really a financier. And the hard part about, studios have always played a role because the costs of filmmaking and TV series are so high that you have an idea, you kind of need a studio to help finance it. But I do think the costs of content creation and distribution are coming down so quickly that there's going to be a world where a small married band of artists are going to be able to create an amazing feature that winds up getting distributed, and they keep all the money and they distribute it and find as many people that they can. That exists. The question is, what's that project that happens? And so I do think, and when will that happen? And we're in this really rough patch where everyone's trying to figure out where everything's going and how things are going to work. But I do think in the chaos, if you get some really good scrappy people and figuring out how to make it work, there are opportunities for more stories. It already exists today. It's just, what's the level of production value you're looking at? It's going to happen. We just have to figure it out.
Thank you for that. So I want to build on what Albert was saying and turn to Grant, because we're talking about a lens and particularly Grant's been using an intersectional lens. And I also want you to share the business model of Stampede, because I think it goes towards what Albert was talking about. And how have you used your lens to create opportunities for the API community and also first-time directors? And I would love for you to also talk about the K-Pops movie and Anderson Peak.
Yes, I loved everything you were saying, because it's kind of everything we're trying to run at Stampede. So on the film side at Stampede, our business model and our goal is to create mid-budget theatrical franchises for audiences all over the world. So our CEO is Greg Silverman. He was running film at Warner Brothers for a while. And it was back when studios were doing these mid-budget movies, right? They weren't just betting on the big superhero movies. They were doing things in the 20, 30, 40, $50 million budget range. And I think when we look back at the movies we love, those were some of our favorite movies. So we are financing and producing bets out there. So for me, I'm a mixed race. I'm Filipino, I'm Chamorro, I'm gay, I'm a lot of things. And so I'm the only other in my company. It's a company otherwise full of white people, so I wear a lot of hats when we hear pitches. And so Anderson .Paak, the amazing musician who, he's great. When he came in for a pitch, I had no idea who he was actually, but I got pulled in because I was the Asian exec at the time, and it was an Asian story. And he came to us with a pitch about his own mixed race identity. He is Black, he is Korean, he is married to a Korean woman, he has a mixed race son, and he wanted to tell a story about exploring that mixed race identity through a really commercial theatrical lens set in the world of K-pop. The whole movie takes place in a K-pop competition show. We shot it all over the world. We shot a lot of it in Seoul. We were lucky enough to shoot here in California so people could go home at the end of the night. And when he came in and pitched that movie, it was the first time I really saw myself in a story. And luckily enough, it wasn't a small story about an Asian family growing up in Iowa, right? It was a story set on a really commercial theatrical stage that I knew there was a ramp to get this made, and he was making it for the right price, right? He wasn't making a $60 million movie. He was scrappy. He's an amazing filmmaker. He did all of the film's music himself. He pulled in favors. We shot it like a real indie, and it'll be coming out early next year in theaters. So we're really excited about that. Yeah, more on that soon, but that's the little tease. And I would say throughout that process too, in making K-pops, it is basically an all Asian cast, and it was the first time I stepped on set and looked around and was just amazed. It was kind of the feeling you were talking about, where you didn't have to leave yourself at the door when you got to set. And we looked at our department heads. We had an amazing Asian American woman, Bao Tranchi, do our costume design. And you see it across the whole film with her authentic designs and her love for the K-pop world and her love for the story. And for me, whether it's on that film or a film like Space Cadet, right, which isn't a quote unquote API film, right, bringing a sense of inclusivity and looking at it from a really intersectional lens when we're casting, when we're hiring department heads, when we are looking at who's going to direct a movie. Our next few movies that we're financing, they're all directed by women, and 2 of them are first-time feature directors. Yeah, and it's something we're really proud of, but didn't embark on that intentionally. It just, we found they were the best person for this story. They're the best storytellers, and we're excited to back them and see what's next.
Can't wait to see it. So we're moving the needle one story at a time. And Maggie, can you also talk about what did it take for you to go from being a story artist to a director, being able to direct, and to pitch this phenomenal idea, which we're super excited to hear all about?
Yeah, I had a lot of really great mentors and a lot of, support. And a lot of that came from white men, actually. They gave me opportunities to become a leader. So I first started as a story artist, and then I became a head of story, which is the supervising role in that department. And that job kind of prepares you to become a director. And so, every step, it was a white man that gave me that opportunity. And so I think, for me, I think just that whole idea of training in every industry, like every part of this industry, this entertainment industry, everybody should be rising up everybody else. I don't think it's just Asians helping Asians or, women helping women. It's just everybody needs to acknowledge these numbers and help everybody else. And I think that's the only way that could happen. So yeah, that's how it kind of started. And then this relationship that I had built with a producer that I met at DreamWorks, he produced all the Shrek movies, and he ended up at Sony. And he was basically like, oh, do you have a movie that you can pitch me? Because I really want to work with you. And so my husband and I were driving around Highland Park one day. Our kid was 1 and she was sleeping, and we were like, okay, let's come up with something to pitch to Erin. And all these ideas that the movie is, which is actually minus K-pop, that was the last ingredient that was folded in, even though the movie is called a K-pop movie. So first off, I'm Korean, and I've been wanting to see Korean culture just represented in feature animation. And 20 years ago, when I was starting my career, CJ Entertainment, somebody from CJ Entertainment, which is a huge media producer and distributor in South Korea, they approached me and said, we have a lot of money, and we're giving ourselves 10 years to become a studio like DreamWorks, and we want to create Korean content for the, for Hollywood, for the big feature animation stage. And I was like, okay, but I was a year into my career, I didn't know anything, and they were basically like, can you recommend anybody who would be able to do this? And I was like, I don't know. And then nothing really came of that. And so I knew that since 20 years ago, there was this appetite in Korea to see Korean representation in feature film. And so when it came time for me to kind of step into the directing role, I was like, you know what, I want to see that too. So I kind of looked at our mythology, and I just landed on Korean demons. I just thought visually that would be something very different and stunning to see. And that just led me to Demon Hunters, which was like, oh, that's cool. I could do a group of really badass girls, Korean girls. And And then I started to think about like just the type of women that I wanted to see in film. And at the time there was, you know, all these Marvel movies were coming out, and there were so many female superheroes, but I didn't feel like I was seeing female superheroes in a way that I wanted to see them, which was like very real. And women who are a little silly or a lot silly and eat a lot and get pot bellies and are allowed to look ugly and, you know, quote unquote ugly and make weird faces. And so I was like, okay, this is the type of women I want to see. I'm going to try to push through this, you know, with that. And you know, demon hunting is usually like a job that is done in secret without the world knowing. So the girls needed a day job, and K-pop was just something in Korean that came to my mind. And so that's literally the next day was how it was pitched. It was a group of girls who are K-pop stars, but they're demon hunters. And Aaron was like, I love it. And and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, Aaron. And the next week he had a deal ready. And that was almost to release day 7 years ago. And for 7 years we've been developing this movie, and now it's coming out, which is, and every step of the way I was like, is this really happening? Are they letting me make a movie with like an all Korean cast, like featuring all Korean women and mythology? And I was like, okay. And it was amazing. And all the artists, there were about, I don't know, I actually don't know the number, but there's, on all these huge animated productions, there's hundreds of artists that work on these things. And I think our crew, if we look at the credits, it's about 800 to 1,000 names. And not all of those people are artists, but they're the support and marketing and just everybody. But it was amazing to go into these rooms with, you know, animation dailies or CFX or, you know, effects, and with our CG soup, and we would talk about how we wanted to push Korean expressions through these characters. And it was very important for me to show these women like express in more of a Korean way, because that's just what I wanted to see. And we worked tirelessly to kind of get, you know, find the mouth shapes or like the eye expressions that were very specific to our culture. And it was really challenging, but everybody was so on board with that challenge. And it was so amazing to see hundreds of people in every meeting just embracing our culture and helping create this movie. So I think the hunger from creatives is there to create all of this different content, because it's something that they all wanted to see too. And every day that's what the crew told me, is like, we love this, we've been wanting to work on something like this. So it's really amazing, and it's something that we all want, I think.
Can't wait to see it. So Jasmine is giving me permission to let you ask some questions before we have dessert. So what is the call to action besides watching you in Deli Boys? Anything else you want to pitch?
Well,
This is the shameless moment.
Here we go. Well, it's super interesting because you see an upward trajectory in representation and stuff, and we have Onyx, wonderful studio, Disney studio behind us, and the critics love Deli Boys, but the truth is we're still measured against white numbers. And so in terms of critical and everything, we're we've made it. But in terms of sheer viewership, we haven't. So we haven't been greenlit for season 2 yet. But it's also wonderful because the news is not all rosy. The representation, there's so much work still to be done. So I'm going to request all of you to go home. You don't have to watch it. It's very violent, but press play. Play on Deli Boys and just go to sleep. And give me that number.
So Albert, we talked about a few amazing projects that you're excited about.
Yeah, two shows that are coming out on Prime Video, and just an example of why we need people of color in the decision-making seats, because they would not have been made if I wasn't sitting in the seat that I was in. One of them is called Ballard. You may think it's a spin-off of Bosch, if you're into the Bosch franchise, and it almost did not get made because no one, as the scripts came in, the question was, we need, you know, yes, it's based off of IP, but who's going to play the female lead? It's an Asian person from Hawaii. And I just sat there like, what are you talking about? It's Maggie Q. And the fact that people in that room could not even come up with her name and said, this is not going to happen. I said, if we can get Maggie Q, I'm not sure she's going to do it, but if we can get her, like, we should get her in the show. And that would not have been made if her name did not come up in that meeting. The second one, so that's coming July, this in a couple of months. And then another one's called Butterfly, which is based off, anyone know that one? Daniel D. Kim stars in that, and it's based off of a graphic novel that was written by Arash Amel, who strangely I knew Arash when he was a Wall Street analyst before he became a Hollywood screenwriter. So that is coming up, and it's basically it's a really fun story about a father-daughter who find each other again, but they're both part of like this secret, you know, spy assassin kind of thing happening. So anyway, that's really fun.
Exciting. So Grant, what is the release date for K-Pops, and what else are you working on you want to tell everybody?
Yeah, so K-Pops will come out early next year. I can't say a release date yet, but early next year. And we have a few other things. If you haven't watched Space Cadet, go on Amazon and watch Space Cadet. Fun, easy watch, not dark and gruesome, so maybe be awake for that one. And we have another film coming out this fall with Emma Thompson starring it called The Dead of Winter. That's a really amazing, gritty thriller in a role that you've never seen Emma Thompson play before.
Love it. And then, Maggie, when is K-Pop Demon Hunter coming out, and what else you're working on?
So K-Pop Demon Hunters is coming on June 20th, and it will be premiering on Netflix. So please watch it, and then watch it again, and then again, and again, and again. But I promise you, you will want to, because our music alone is just phenomenal. Our album is coming out the same day, and so please put that on repeat as well. It'll be on Apple Tunes, or is that what it's called? Apple Music, iTunes, I guess, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite music. And currently, I am on vacation, so yeah, nothing really on the horizon, but you know, people are making me talk about it, you know, think about it. So
Well, you deserve it. So again, the bar is open. Yay! We have coffee, we have dessert. Our lovely panelists will be here. And if any of you are not a member of the Institute and you came as a guest, we please invite you to join the Institute. We have year-round groovy events. Geena will be there. We also have a fabulous on-demand library. We have about 10 years of video that you can watch. And we're so happy for you to be here. And again, big thanks to Mr. Bill Amata. Thank you so much for your generosity, IWG Group, Jonathan Sposado with Joy Sauce, and of course, We Love Cape. Thank you, everybody. Let's have a drink.